Hi people, Marino with Mercury again as always and as usual. Yeah, it's time for another geolocation chart again. This time I'm going to cover Australia. I repeat, this is going to be a geolocation chart on Australia. I cast this one, as you can tell, past Sunday, so a couple of days ago. But I simply thought to myself, I'm simply going to wait until a microphone that I ordered arrived, and then I'm going to get to recording this now. So let's just dive right in as usual. The first house and the ascendant that rules over the first house is ruled by Gemini. This simply stands for the fact that day-to-day life in Australia is more centered and situated around infrastructure. Usually Australia, being a landmass, would make it so, being a large landmass would make it so that the first house would be bigger. But that is not the case here based on simply comparing it to the rest of the world. Australia isn't that big by comparison. It is big, but not like ultra mega big. You know, there are big countries that are geographically much bigger, like the US, Canada, arguably Russia, definitely. It just goes on. Anyways, that's why the first house isn't unusually big as maybe some people would suspect. I'm gonna try to keep it as short and straight to the point I'm gonna try to keep it as short and straight to the point the way I usually aim for. Now, we've got Lilith, Juno, and Venus all in Virgo, and they do not function well in Virgo. Lilith and Venus especially. Juno, it all depends on the situation, but within this specific context, no. Considering the fact that they are in an Earth sign, Virgo is an Earth sign, and it's in a house, and all three of them are in a house that is ruled by a water sign. And Lilith being conjunct in a deer, so the sign opposing the ascendant, so the the midheaven, so the fourth house cusp, opposing Saturn, which is 0 degrees in Pisces going retrograde, conjunct the midheaven, and Venus is also opposed Neptune, which is at its strongest in Pisces but going retrograde. All of these, in short, stand for tremendous difficulties on the real estate market. The real estate market brings a lot of challenges along with it. Venus stands for the fact that people have a hard time finding a home in general, a place to stay. They have difficulty finding an abode because the rules and regulations and requirements are quite strict, to say the least. Juno stands for the fact that the real estate market works more on a buddy-buddy basis, so you scratch my back, I scratch yours basis, where essentially landlords and owners of properties rent out to people that they either know through a contact or people that they have some kind of expectation from. Lilith says the same thing, but specifically more within a feminine context. So essentially, think of a landlord that's a guy that simply is helping out a woman in return for you know what. Okay. And yeah, while I'm treating this, so again, bluntly put, the real estate market is shit in Australia by default. And since I'm treating that, I'm also going to treat the oppositions, because it's pretty much the same thing but from a different perspective. Now, Saturn in Pisces going retrograde conjunct the midheaven in the 10th house stand for authority figures. It essentially stands for politicians, judges, lawyers, anyone that is the boss in charge. And the fact that Saturn is already in one of the weakest signs it can be in, which is Pisces, and it going retrograde on top of it only adds insult to injury. And the conjunction is strong, the conjunction with midheaven, since it's in a sign that Saturn rules over. All of this simply stands for the fact that unfortunately authority figures in Australia are quite corrupt, to say the least, and their influence over society as a whole, over the masses, is quite strong. Neptune says the same thing. There is a tremendous amount of corruption and misleadment and deception present within Australia's authoritative sector. Let me just put it that way. Anything from politics to big business owners, you name it, CEOs, boardroom meetings, the whole 9 yards. Palas being here in Libra, in the 5th house, the house that Leo rules over, stands for the fact that there is a minor interest in romance that people have towards one another, but nothing really worth mentioning. Now, arguably the strongest house is the 6th house, which stands for Australia's labor market. The Sun, Mars, Mercury, Ceres, and the part of Fortune are all in Scorpio, and they're all aspected to one another. They're all conjunct each other, with the exception of the Sun. The Sun is conjunct Mars and Mercury. Mars, Mercury, Ceres, and the part of Fortune are all conjunct each other. They're all in Scorpio. They're all in Virgo's house, which I already said stands for Australia's labor market. This stands for arguably Australia's strongest trait, which is the labor market. Australia has a high level of productivity compared to the rest of the world, like think top 10, top 15, top 20 in terms of a good labor market, an intense labor market, a competitive one, and one that yields a high GDP output, one that rakes in the money. And while I'm treating this, I'm also going to treat the opposite ends. You've got the Earth, you've got Jupiter, the Moon, and Uranus, all in Taurus. And the Moon and Uranus are conjunct each other. Jupiter and the Earth are conjunct each other. But Jupiter and Uranus are going retrograde. Now, this stands for the same thing essentially, but from a different vantage point. This essentially stands for importing and exporting restrictions. One of the two or a combination of both, whether it be partially or in full. It simply stands for conflict that, ironically, despite the fact that Australia has such a high labor-based output, there are issues regarding importing here and there, to say the least. And the fact that it's in 12th house also stands for the fact that even within those imports, there is like a considerable amount of negativity in the way of corruption and mismanagement going. Now, Pluto is in Capricorn, conjunct the 9th house, but it's in the 8th house. This simply stands for the fact that that Australia has a lot in the way of fauna, which is highly deadly or has a high mortality rate. I mean, by human standards. Simply put, Australia has a lot of dangerous animals. Most people know that already. And Pluto stands for that. The 9th house deals with large animals. And yeah, Pluto being in Scorpio's house, the 8th house, and in Capricorn, in one of the strongest signs it can be in, conjunct the 9th house, which is also ruled by Capricorn, stands for just that. Large animals being present in Australia as a nation that have a high mortality rate if they were to come into contact with humans. The 6th house says the same thing, since the 6th house deals with small animals, and that's why all of them are in Scorpio. Small animals even have a high mortality rate. Simply put, everything in Australia regarding wildlife pretty much can kill you, and if you step on it by accident or kick it by accident or enter its territory, there's a good chance that you're going to die because it's going to kill you. Mortality rate is high. Now, what else did I have to treat? Nothing else. That's pretty much it. That's what Australia looks like. I'm going to finish this video up by simply showing you guys proof of everything I've said. Not that it's necessary. I've done enough of these videos. Not that I ever need proof. You guys know who I am. But just for good measure's sake, I have a nice nifty PDF here. You guys can find this PDF linked in the description of this video, and you'll see for yourself everything that I've said. Now, I'm going to open up the first link. Yeah. And I'm going to read it for you. More than 80% of Australians believe pork barreling is a form of corruption. Poll also shows 2/3 of Australians believe corruption is common in federal government as expert raises concerns about trust in democracy. You can read it for yourself if you download the PDF. This is simply my point, the point that I'm making. You saw the high level of corruption. Now, countries with the most venomous animals. Look at that. Australia is black, over 50. Which country has the most venomous animals? Surprisingly, it's not Australia, but Mexico with 80, followed by Brazil with 79, and then Australia with just 66. They just happen to be more potent. You can see for yourself, potency. It's not just about quantity, it's about quality. Like I said, one of the things Australia is notorious for, that almost everything can kill you in the way of wildlife. See, even if you Google this, which country has the deadliest animals? Australia. Immediately, Australia pops up as one of the top 5 countries. With Australia immediately shows up in the top 5 as having the deadliest scale of animals. Go away, man, stupid thing. Yeah, as the thingy here says, which city has the worst real estate market in your country? Now, I'm not advocating for Quora, nor am I going to say any negative thing. This is simply to give you an example. If the simplest of people say this, then you already know what time it is. And I recite, Australia is notorious for its robust real estate markets. Almost every capital city has been growing to incredible heights year after year. Even in the not so good parts of the city, you can still find a bargain. Anywhere within driving distance of the city center is considered premium. We don't really have those rotting inner city cores you can find in other countries. So if it's close to work, you'll get top dollar in both rent and sales price. Yes, real estate. Now, let me show you another thing as well. Hold on for a second.
Australia's rental crisis is getting worse as the number of rental listings has fallen to a record low. PropTrack's new rental report shows listings declined by 5.7% since September last year, while the number of inquiries for each listing increased from 24.5 to 24.8%. Experts say they are concerned about scarce options and rising prices, which are pushing residents to homelessness.
Yeah, you've heard it for yourself. Now, for the rest, a bunch of other interesting links. These countries have the most skilled labor forces. This article, see for yourself. Germany is number 1, South Korea number 2, Japan number 3, China number 4, Belgium 5, United States 6, Sweden 7, Finland 8, Canada 9, Singapore 10. Let me show you. United Kingdom, Netherlands, Australia, it just goes on. Australia, I'm sorry, this earlier was Austria. I misspoke. Australia, number 17 in skilled labor force. Number 4 in best countries overall. GDP per capita, look at that, over 62,000. GDP 1.68 trillion. Yeah, Australia is known for having a very skilled labor force. You know, compared to the rest of the countries in the world, it's in the top 20. So that speaks for itself. And it just goes on. These countries have the best job market. It ranks even higher on the job market. Number 5 for a good job market. Look at that, number 5. Now, the last thing that I'm going to show you guys is what the 12th house said. Trade barriers. Quarantine. The Australian Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment, the DAWE, is the federal body responsible for enforcing Australia's quarantine of goods regulations, including issuing permits and inspecting shipments. Blah, 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 blah. Australia, however, may find it difficult to comply with Australia's import quarantine requirements. In essence, the Australian government enforces its quarantine measures very seriously. In essence, you can see for yourself, okay? Just what the 12th house said. There are issues regarding importing here and there. And that's pretty much it. So you can see all of it for yourself. See the labor market, see real estate, see the corruption, the deadly animals, the importing issues. It just goes on. So that's all, guys. I hope you enjoyed as always, and see you until next time.